spawning in or is just like trying to catch up with me. I don't know. I will definitely say though that the one flashback with the Bruma guard though, when the demon guy came from the hallway kind of thing and started chasing over me, that got me, and that was it. Like that literally did get me. Like I wasn't expecting that to happen my first time. So as soon as like I walked up, it was like like that was very surprising. Also, it's kind of weird though because the one thing that was here was that the dream thing? Was it the dream thing that we saw? Kind of thing? Like in the maze area that I was kind of hoping that the mod creator would actually tell you like where to go kind of thing. That was the only thing I was really hoping for the walkthrough to have was just a way to get through that. I think everything else I could have figured it out on screen again. Ship in a bottle. Yay! I don't know if that actually does anything. Ship in a bottle. Yeah, there's no lights in here. It's really weird that this is not brighter now because the mod is done. Like, look at this room, though. Like, if we're out of here, like, I should be able to see inside that room now. Like, is the mansion supposed to be dark after? Or is it supposed to be, like, lit up and it's like, oh, yeah, by the way, it's so cheerful. Ha, 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 so fun. Or are you supposed to do all of the notes kind of thing? Is that why? All the notes allow, like, sort of like how Benris Manor kind of was. Where in Benris Manor, as soon as, like, you've finished off, like, everything, like, the house just kind of, or once you break the curse kind of thing. But then again, that doesn't make any sense because we've already broken the curse. Anyway, yeah. So, like, the one thing that's really funny, though, is that out of anything in this mod, it does break a little bit of Drathus's or slash the Dark King's lore. Where, to be fair, the Dark King can't actually experience nightmares through external means. If that... That was weird. Through external means. What I'm trying to say though is that like someone that is not Drathus experiencing the nightmare naturally can't actually have nightmares. So like I can't cast a spell that will like give Drathus a nightmare because technically the Dark King's Heart would just end up preventing such a thing from happening. Piano doesn't do anything. Is it just because the music's down? Nope. Alright. And same thing with death. The whole lore with the Dark King's Heart prevents the user from dying. Now, I understand, though, for the lore of the mod, it makes sense that a character dies and then it brings us back. I have a character that has a similar kind of fate, though, where they've been brought back from the dead, but they're not technically undead. They're still technically human. But under the laws of the world kind of thing, they're classified as still undead. I think the character's name was Race. And the reason why that this character... Actually, I think it's the Battle Butler thing, yeah, from the mod. I think that was supposed to be like Race's whole thing, was that he was like a butler that was like, okay, he was supposed to be a holy knight that died, and someone brought him back to life. And that person that brought him back to life through their sort of well, I've already explained quirks, I think, but pretty much it's the quirk of like a person who is able to bring back anything from the dead, but if it's stronger than what he is kind of thing, he gets weaker, like he gets fatigued from it, similar to how Shadow Walk works as well. Shadow Walk is the same kind of instance as well, where you travel into between the realms of the living and the dead. you're into the sort of the boundary line between them, where you can see both realms as they were, or as they are. The only difference is that because you're still technically living in the realm of the dead, you're not supposed to live there, of course. You technically feel weakened, like your life force is slowly being drained. The only reason why Drathis actually has Shadow Walk is because as long as his quirk is the ability of mimicry. He can mimic the abilities, but he can't mimic them to perfection. So as long as he's seen the quirk happen, so let's say in this case, he's seen Shadow Walk is Corinx's quirk, so as long as he's seen Corinx's Shadow Walk, he can mimic it. The only difference is that he can't mimic it perfectly. So he can't mimic it in the same sense like he only Corinx only gets drained by 1 point of health per second because he's proficient in it, where he loses less of his life energy from Shadow Walking. But Drathis, as you can see, takes 10 points of health damage. So he's not proficient with it. So that's kind of the nerf that he has for that. And I think that's the only passive that he has that technically makes sense. Like, as I've said through this tale, do I still have it shown, or do I have it hidden now? I don't remember if I have it shown or if I still have it hidden. I know I put it in a different location. Yeah, because I have one shown up here. Is it still here? Ah, it's still here. Okay. Let's see here. It's at the end, right? Yeah, a rune who has the quirk to see the complete future. Yeah. So for a rune, Drathis can actually see between, what was it? It was like 10 to, was it 5? It was like 5 to 10 seconds, I think, of the future. I think the cap of it was 15 seconds. So he can see between like 5 to 15 seconds into the future, which is why we have spatial awareness. It allows us to see around us. And the only reason why that he has this quirk is because he saw a rune being able to read the future. Now, Drathis' quirk of mimicry, for this quirk in particular, to see the complete future, can be overwritten by a rune if a rune sees something completely different. If a rune sees something completely different, Drathis' quirk of complete future mimicked is removed completely, which is just nerfing it entirely. And Audrin, who has the quirk of mastery of all magical elements, and then Corinx's Shadow Walk, yep. Travel in between the Void Realm, which is the realm of the dead, and the living world. Audrin has the ability of the quirk of mastery over any magical element. So fire, water, ice, shock, whatever, you name it, Audrin is a master over it. But Audrin has her quirk technically nerfed because of her equipment, which completely drains all of her magic because she never properly trained it. So she doesn't take full mastery over it, but she technically does have it. And of course, Drathis then found his quirk, Mimicry, the ability to mimic any quirk, but not having full power over it, and technically full mastery over it as well. So that's why he can't use all their powers to perfection. But there's one that technically died that has the ability of resurrecting the dead completely. There was one that can raise people from the dead, but can only turn them into liches. And that's only if they have great magical potential. So mages, necromancers, same thing. This guy can bring them back as liches by his power. What's the other one? Yeah, there was one that can just bring them back as an undead. There was one that can bring them back as full living people, like Drathis here from the orb of examination and stuff like that. But again, though, like, out of the lore of Drathis, he wouldn't die because the heart would have prevented it from happening. Actually, speaking of the book, I'll show you what I mean. So these three characters that are in this book, other than the ending, of course, and Archmus technically, because Archmus was the one that did it. Archmus was the first kind of thing that ended up creating the heart. So over here, I found a sorcerer who had a unique quirk of creating an alternate dimension for him to use. Of course, he bound it to the heart, or used the quirk on the heart itself to create a beautiful island for him to enjoy. And of course, when he tried to bring someone else that wasn't worth it, it told him to not bring anybody unworthy to this location. So, after that, then when he ended up doing this and he enchanted the materials, like he exhausted all of what made him useful, the armor ended up doing something different. So, after the sorcerer left the realm, the heart sealed the realm from him. So now it was a backdoor escape, but now the heart said, "Nuh-uh, it's not happening anymore." And then when he tried to return into the heart did the same thing. It told him, "Do not bring anybody unworthy to this location." And the sorcerer was then confused, but then he died. And then it went to find another vessel. Then the smith happened, or the craftsman technically. And then he wanted to create the lodge fit for a king, built it. Then he wanted an armor. The smith built the armor. Then after the armor, done. He exhausted his usefulness, but because he was a craftsman, not an adventuring kind of craftsman kind of thing where he went from city to city, he technically lived a long fulfilled life of a natural death of time. He lived till his final days kind of thing. And then the heart fled from him and found another vessel. The reason why the heart doesn't leave right away is because just in case it needs something, right? So it can trick the vessel into helping it again. That's why it waits until they actually die, because then when they die, it takes a piece of their quirk kind of thing. So mastery over fire and ice. This is why we have this as with fire and ice damage, because that's how the quirk works. It gives us the ability of fire and ice for these spells and such. But if we go to the third one, the Master Enchanter who had the unique quirk of mastery with electricity, or electric or shock damage, which fulfills the final piece of the pieces of Oblivion that allows us to have mastery over electricity, or shock spells in general. So then he is free to do whatever he wants. So he let him do exactly what he wanted, which allowed him to make the sword and the armor pretty much be indestructible and being able to always be imbued with magic, no matter what. And tried to bind the sword to the heart, which was successful, and then the armor to the heart, but then he tried to bind, which were all successful. Then when he tried to bind the sword to the armor, so that if you get the armor, if you're immediately in combat, the sword gets called immediately without any hesitation. It sort of backfired and turned not just the armor, the sword, but the whole entire heart itself, which also technically extends to the armor and sword as well, but I ended up just saying like the armor or the sword, but the whole heart itself, and running it from existence itself. So what that means in simple terms is that because the heart is out of existence, it means that nothing in existence can destroy it. Because everything in existence has a creation and a destruction date kind of thing labeled on it, like in hidden words, kind of like in a hidden font that we can't read. So it'll tell you like let's say oh, this book was created January 12th 2020, and the day that it will be completely destroyed where there's no fragment left is February 27th 2030. That means that it is a creation that is in existence because it has both a creation and a destruction date. But for the Dark King's heart and anything that goes inside it, inside this lodge or inside this world space itself, so as soon as Drathis arrives here, that thing has been teleported out of existence. It's been pulled. It can return back into existence once it gets removed from the lodge itself or from this world space, but once it enters here, it gets pulled out of existence, where existence goes, whoa, where'd that item go? And then once it gets back, it goes, I found the item. Thankfully, I found it. But once an item's been pulled out of existence and gets pulled into here, it cannot be destroyed, it cannot be reborn, it can only be tempered, reforged, whatever you want to call it. But once an item has been reforged or tempered in this space, it is removed from existence. It has been increased, which means that resistance doesn't read it as it's the same item. So that's kind of how like this works. So that's why like the Dark King can never truly die in an instance, because his armor's been written out of existence, and technically anything in existence can break still. And the armor kind of, I guess you could say it also overrides their existence destruction date too, because it can break right off the bat and go, well, that's interesting. But yes, that's pretty much it for Shroud over Xilestar Manor. I thought it was going to be pretty interesting just to say a little bit more about the Dark King's lore and such. I thought it would be pretty fun just to say like it out loud, because it would be kind of fun to say what the Dark King actually is and all that.
How can I help?
I need you to follow me, please. Whenever you want, Tess. Alright. So yeah, so I'll see you guys, next time for some more Oblivion modded playthrough.